All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat,
And I'm Eric.
And I am
and
Stan.
and today we are going to be talking about. Well, first off, I was able to play The Outer Worlds. I picked it up on. Well, I got an access code on Sunday. Basically, I'm recording game footage for RPG Fan for their review that they're doing. They got a U.S. locked promo code, and they didn't have anyone that had a capture card and a PS4 that wasn't currently reviewing something else. So luckily, I came in and was like, I will play the game and record footage. So I've got to play it. We got to go ahead and talk about it. I can't show any game footage, but I'm excited to get into my impressions thus far with that. We're also going to be talking about what we've been playing. I'm going to get your guys' video fixed here while I'm talking. And hold on, we just got black screen there. And then
Oh, no.
also, oh, there we go. Perfect. And then also, we're going to be getting into a recent article that came out surrounding Final Fantasy XIV's TV show. Basically, the showrunner said they could make a TV show based on practically any Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VII was almost a show they decided to make a show based on. So we can talk about that, whether or not Final Fantasy VII would have been a good TV show, why Final Fantasy XIV is a good pick, etc. And then also, we have a Discord question. And that question is from Decoy Manta. And he asks, you have the power to take one game franchise and give it to another game developer of your choosing. Which franchise do you choose and which developer? So, very good question. And there's some other questions on Discord as well. So, we're excited to get to those next week. But these are going to be the topics that we have for this episode. But before we get into any further into the podcast, I just want to throw out there that we are a media partner with RPGFan.com, and they are a great source of RPG news. So I strongly suggest everyone to go check out RPGFan.com. They actually just released a Fire Emblem Three Houses video review. So that's a really good review, by the way. If you enjoyed Fire Emblem Three Houses, definitely go check that out. You can check out their podcast as well. Random Encounter and Retro Encounter. Encounter does like in-depth discussions and news, and then Retro Encounter does like weekly like game talks on specific games. So, and I know they just talked about Fire Emblem Three Houses as well. So, if you're into Fire Emblem Three Houses, seems like a good place to go. Make sure you go check them out. And I know they're going to have an Outer Worlds review coming out soonish. I'm not sure the specific date, but pretty soon. So make sure you go check them out. Anyways, do you all want to go ahead and get in on what you've been playing before I just jump into the Outer Worlds? Or how do you all want to handle that?
Sure, let's go for it.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I see
Sorry,
some
I was just
people.
posting stuff. What are we asking now?
So I see some people first off asking or saying, "Hey, welcome back, Eric." I saw Andrew said, "Hey guys, hope you had a great wedding and honeymoon, Eric." So
Oh yeah, just a small rundown. Yeah, it was great. I was on a boat all week, and then I went to Disney and Universal the next week, and it was a good time. Uh, our Lord Mickey Mouse wiped my wallet clean. So
awesome.
Sounds like a blast.
no joke. I mean, not even Disney alone. Universal, just for me and my wife to get in for a day between the two parks, we paid nearly $700
That's crazy.
just for us two between the two parks for a day.
And did you have like a speed pass or anything to like get to avoid the lines?
Nope, that would have been an extra 130 per.
Woo!
Dude, that's just outrageous.
Yeah, and the whole day, it's like we waited in lines that were like 80 to 120 minutes long. So I know she loves Harry Potter, and I'm like, okay, I got to make sure she does the Harry Potter stuff. Then whatever we do after is a bonus. So I had to make sure we at least did those, which is really cool. If you're a Harry Potter fan, oof, I mean, that stuff is, it was really cool. They recreated like areas from the movie like really well. I mean, there's so many damn people that you can't really truly enjoy it, but
Right.
It was really cool for what it was, but that's the rundown of
Cool.
my experience. Glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you back. So while you were gone, just to fill you in, Stan was able to completely get through Dragon Quest XI. He's been really excited to talk about Dragon Quest XI this whole time. Just the entire game. He's just been logging the hours in. So, Stan, do you want to
Hmm.
just fill in, your thoughts on the ending of Dragon Quest XI?
Well, by make it all the way through, if you mean I made it to the first forest, then yes.
He 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 opened the game and stuck it in, and
The Mangle Grove.
that was a
Yes,
big accomplishment.
I had about 4 or 5 hours to play it this week. It made the journey from my desk into my Nintendo Switch, and yeah, I enjoy it. I didn't realize how long it's been since I played a game like this that is, how would you say, very jovial or kind of upbeat, like lighthearted. I guess
Sure.
all the JRPGs I've been playing recently are like Octopath Traveler and like very dark,
Right.
like very dark, serious tone. So that threw me for a loop a little bit in the beginning. I was like,
Well,
wow, everybody's so happy, you know,
yeah.
to start
Well,
off. But I'm sure it has its serious moments, right?
It does.
So yeah.
yeah. I I mean I would say most Dragon Quest games, they from my experience, I haven't played all of them, but they usually start off pretty happy go lucky, and then they take a few turns up and down. So
Hmm.
I don't think
Yeah.
this one's much different.
Yeah, it's pretty fun so far. I've heard some people criticize that the game is a little too easy, which I'm in the very beginning of the game though, so that's kind of what I would expect, right? For a
Um,
Dragon Quest game, I guess.
it definitely has its challenging moments for sure, especially near the end of the game. It is a more relaxed experience unless you put the Draconia mode
Mm,
mods on, which are in the game. And Dragon Quest has never been too difficult of a game. There have been ones where you feel like you want to grind some if you don't 100% know like the game or the abilities and everything to work with.
mhm.
Um, but I would say Dragon Quest XI is probably one of the easier ones, and that's especially since you don't have random encounters in the 3D version. Like
Right.
I've been playing through the 2D version, and I'm all the way up to Act 3
Mm,
on that version. It's actually much faster to beat the 2D version because the world map and the dungeons and everything are much faster to get through. I have about almost 50 hours and I'm in Act 3, which I think that took like 60 to 70 hours to get to
mm,
um, in the 3D version.
Mhm.
But uh, there's random encounters in that one, though. And because of that, I feel like the game is actually more balanced for it.
Yeah.
mm.
And the battles go much faster on it. But that's just the 2D version I've been going through. I'm
S-
glad you're finally playing it.
I am playing it. Yep. Yeah, I did the 2D version for the first quest just to see what it was like. So
Mhm.
I did the opening scenario with the kind of
2D just
rite of
yeah.
passage thing, right in the beginning, and
Right.
then save my game. And I was like, well, I wonder what that would be like in the 2D version. So I just started a new game in the 2D mode and just played up to the point where I was, and then now I'm back to the 3D version.
Now, the cool thing is, if you're playing the 3D version, there is a new side quest they added that takes you back to um, the old Dragon Quest worlds from the first 10 games. And that one is mandatory to be in 2D, but it'll switch you between the 3D and the 2D automatically when you go there. So it's not like you have to go revert back to the store certain part of the story and then go there. Like it'll just automatically switch to 2D. So you can still get that 2D experience in a little bit
Mm,
if you did truly want to test it out because you get the ability to do that side quest pretty early in the game.
mm, I see.
Hmm.
Very cool. So, do you plan on playing some more this week?
Yes, I got to keep going. It's a long game, so
Yeah, it is.
yeah, I gotta make more time for it this week for sure.
Yeah. Um, Very cool. I hope you enjoy it. Eric, what have you been getting into?
The other thing we did while we were out, I got both myself and my wife, but the new Switch Lite,
Mm.
and I will say I do absolutely love this handheld.
Is it lighter?
Like, it is so much lighter. I would say it's probably, yeah, maybe 3 times lighter than the, original Switch.
Hmm.
This is, like, the first time, like, in a while that I've held a Nintendo handheld in my hand, and I don't
Right.
eventually get cramps or it feels too heavy to the point that I'm, like, adjusting my hands for it. Like, this thing stays in my hand comfortably, like, long like this for such a long extended period of time, like we're on the trip, like I was able on the plane play it comfortably, like without any issue. The weight feels light, it feels nice and ergonomic, um, and it really is a beautiful device. There are some certain setbacks to it. Obviously, there's no Joy Cons to it, and you can't hook it to the console, but it
Right.
is $200. Um, for the conversation when the original Switch is 300,
Sure.
and the battery life is a little better on this. I would say there's probably an extra hour or two you can get out of the device compared to the original Switch, depending on which game you play. And the buttons feel just a little bit about the same. The Joy Cons feel the same, and obviously there is a D-pad on here. Oh my god, I love the D-pad. It makes me hate that four button thing they did even more.
There.
But it
Yeah.
feels good. Nintendo's always known for really good D-pad, and this one's no different. It's got where you put the cartridge here and micro SD card here. It's the same on that front. Um, Now, I didn't get rid of my old Switch, and the reason for that is that my new Switch, my old Switch is now just like permanently in the dock.
Yeah.
I
I
have no
was gonna
reason to
say,
take it out anymore.
just leave it in the dock plugged into the TV now.
Yep, and because I pay for the Nintendo Online thing, I have the cloud save.
Mm.
So whenever I want to go between one device and the other, I just hit the cloud save thing. And while it's annoying, there isn't a feature for it to automatically do that
Right.
between the two devices. It only takes like 30 seconds to
But you
download the data
but you have to
from one
manually
to the
do
other.
that every time, right?
Yeah, so like I just got Alliance Alive, which I'm gonna be talking about in just a minute. um, if I wanted to play that game on my TV, like I'm playing it on this handheld right now, all I would have to do is obviously download the game on the Switch first. But assuming I have both downloaded on there, all I would do is go to my main Switch, go to the cloud save data thing, download, and I'll be on that TV in just a minute.
Yeah.
So I technically have still the handheld feature, but in a different, unique way now.
I was I've been kind of tempted to get a Switch Lite at some point just because this past week or two I've been playing some more DS games until I got, the Outer Worlds. And, you know, it's been I forgot how good it feels just to have, like, a smaller device because I've been so attached to my Switch, the standard Switch, and just the fact that it's portable and taking that with me, so on my lunch break at work and stuff like that, I can play in the car if I want to and, or just playing in bed, and it's always felt, like, fairly comfortable, for me, like a grown ass man, like, it doesn't feel super heavy or anything like that, but, at least going to the 3DS and playing some more on that for, hours, right? I was like, "Man, this just feels so good to just have something that's not so huge," right? And, obviously, the bigger screen on the Switch is nice, but, I've been kinda tempted to get the Switch Lite since going back to the 3DS and just being reminded of how good it feels just to have something that's a little smaller, a little more compact, something where you don't really have to worry about battery life as much. It seems like a nice thing to have.
Yeah, and it's easier to carry around too. Like I feel like I'm carrying this big bulky thing around with me, and I don't feel like taking it out. sometimes. Like this one kind of feels like easier to take out, play, put back. Like in the old Switch, like I mean, I love the old Switch. I mean, I don't have much complaints, but now that I have this, now I feel like complaining. It's like it doesn't feel as easy to just pull it out, play it, put it back in. Like this one just feels so much easier to pull out, play a little bit, slap it in my bag, put it back. It doesn't feel like I'm just like setting this whole thing up and then playing it.
Yeah,
And
it looks like like it is actually reasonably portable, right? Where as the Switch is portable because you can take it off the dock and, you can obviously play it that way, but it's not really convenient to just like stick it in your pocket and like go out, you know.
mhm.
It's really big. It's not really ideal for that. It's just kind of bulky, like you said. So does this Switch Lite, does it fit in your pocket? Could you fit this in your pocket comfortably, or would it still be
I
kind
could
of
fit it in my pocket, but not comfortably. I would still recommend using a case for it,
okay?
but
Very
I mean,
cool.
I couldn't fit the Vita comfortably in my pocket either because I
Yeah.
got the analogs just sticking out so much. It's really hard to.
Well,
Um,
regardless, it's more comfortable to carry around than the regular Switch, right?
yeah. Another thing is the screen is technically smaller also, but since it is a 720p screen, it actually kind of, I mean, if you're like if you're a tech nut, you might actually appreciate the fact the screen's a little smaller because that 720p will be a little more crisp
Right, right.
uh playing it. One more thing
Yeah.
about it, another little caveat is that if you have two switches like I do, one of them does have to be a primary switch. And I don't know, it's a Nintendo thing. Nintendo needs to do things that were 10 years ago.
For
Um
the account, like if you have the same account on there.
Yeah, if you have the same account on there. So I have the same account between both Switch devices, and both can play my games and save files just fine. I think there's some special cases like Splatoon and Pokemon Let's Go
So
that where that doesn't go through the cloud save, so you have to play on one or the other.
okay,
But
so by primary, and like Stan said, you have to use your account on one particular Switch. So that means you can't go onto the Nintendo store and buy games on one. You would have
no,
to.
you can. But the thing is, whoever is the secondary Switch has to whatever digital purchase that you have, it has to read through the internet, similar to how the Super Nintendo and Nintendo Store or Nintendo app on there
Oh, so
reads
it
the internet every time.
streams the game.
No, it doesn't stream. It just it detects an internet connection. It detects it's your account, and then it lets you into the game. That's it.
Yeah, the
I was
PS4 actually does the same thing. If you have your account on multiple devices, you have to have one of them set as the primary,
so what
and every
the
other device has to be hooked up online
so the
in order for you
primary
to play those games. Yeah.
so the primary account has to be logged on to Wi-Fi, and then
No, the primary does not have to be logged on the Wi-Fi.
That
The
one can just
Wi-Fi, you can
play the
download the
game.
stuff
Yeah.
on the primary and be good. The secondary, you have to, it has to detect your account via internet and then lets you in.
Yeah.
so
So
It's a
because of that, since this is the portable device, I made this the primary.
That
so
makes sense. Yeah.
And then
okay. So I'm
since
trying.
my out switch is always at home
Right.
on a Wi-Fi connection, then it's like just let that be the secondary.
That makes total sense.
Mhm.
My thing is, I feel like couldn't like, let's say whatever Switch is your primary one, right? Like, couldn't that just not be connected to Wi-Fi at some point, and that could just play games, and then you could just have your secondary Switch play the same game at the same time?
Um.
I haven't tested
Yes,
anything like that.
I
Or
believe you can do that. Uh.
So you could buy
What?
one game and two separate people be playing at the same time.
Yes. Because it's it's checking when you log on online with the secondary. It's checking to see if the primary one is also on, and then I believe it kicks you off. That's the way it works on the PS4 because they don't want you both on. But like
So
you said, you could just
yeah.
open the primary account, start the game, and then log off. Like unplug the turn off the Wi-Fi or unplug
Right. The
the
Ethernet or whatever
router
you're
or
doing,
the
yeah.
cord Ethernet.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then you would be able to play both on both accounts.
So
It is
somebody,
a
well, maybe Eric, maybe you can try this week because I'm curious if this works. Because That'd be an interesting way to save money for people like you that are married now.
I I have a feeling Nintendo is on
They
top
thought
of
of
something
that?
like that. I'm very sure they thought of that.
Well,
Because
that's
if
that
that was the case, we would have heard something by now already. People
yeah.
would be taking advantage of it already.
That's why I'm surprised, like, both of them don't have to be on Wi-Fi at the same time, just to make
Mhm.
sure that, you're not playing the same game twice. Or maybe, like, certain games, you have to be on Wi-Fi to be able to play. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I do hope in the future Nintendo just makes it that you can just the data will just automatically sit in the cloud between the two, so I can just seamlessly just go to the other. But I mean, for what it is right now, it's not a big deal. Some people have made it a big deal and like have condemned the Switch Lite for it, but I'm like, that's not really a big deal that you have to take 30 seconds to switch from one to the other. But in terms of if I recommend this device to people, I would say yes under certain conditions. One, if you never plan on playing docked mode and you just want a really good portable handheld, absolutely 100% worth the $200. If you are if you already own a Switch, it really comes down to, do you want the smaller, lighter one to carry around? And are you willing to deal with the small caveats that Nintendo has with it?
Right.
Um, because the original Nintendo Switch can still do everything you want it to. This one, though, is the only big thing is it's smaller, it's lighter, it's easier to carry around. So it's not like a necessity, but if you really want the best of the portable gaming and the best of the docked gaming, then owning both devices, I think, is the way to go with that. But it's really not needed to do what you want to with like the original Switch. So
Yeah.
it's really if you want to throw another $200 at it.
My thing is where I'm at mentally is I think it's really cool, but I want to wait at least another year just to see if like a Switch Pro or something like that doesn't come out. Not that the Switch Mini would take away from that, but I just want to see like what would be the Switch Pro, like, is it a standalone unit? Are they trying to make it smaller? Are they going to have a smaller model? Just so I don't have to spend that $200 and then fork over another sum of money just to get something that's, a little bit better.
Right.
And if after a year they still haven't come out with the Switch Pro, it looks like a Switch Pro is not coming out. I imagine maybe, I know Nintendo's really bad about this, but maybe the Switch Mini might be a little bit lower in price by then. Maybe. So,
Maybe I
Mhm.
I think yeah, like you're saying, if there's no Switch Pro, then a price cut on both Switch models, the normal and the mini, will probably come like around the time the PS4 is going to come out, or sorry, PS5, right? Which we know is like next holiday,
right.
because sometimes they like cut prices, to try and stay competitive,
Sure.
try and
Mhm.
sell more units in a like when the competitor's device comes out.
Yeah, I mean, right
There
around
will
there,
be
that's gonna
some new form of the Nintendo Switch for sure before its life cycle's over.
yeah, with the PS5 coming out in the holidays next year, it's gotta happen. So, we'll just have to see what that is, but you said you've been playing the Alliance Alive HD?
Yes. I dished out the $50, people. You're welcome.
All
I've
right.
been debating with myself though since I got it yesterday if it was worth paying $50 for this game.
Yep.
Even though I paid 40 for it the first time. Uh, but in terms of if it's worth getting on the Switch, so far the game it's the same exact game except upscaled. Um, let me see, get to about what I'm talking about. But I don't even know if it'll show very well on here.
Nope.
No.
Can kind of,
Mm,
not really
yeah.
s I can't tell that it's upscaled, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I can see the outlines of some characters, that's about it. I could put some footage on the screen, but here, let me
Yeah.
get
I mean, overall, it is upscaled to 720p on this. I think it's scaled to 1080p on consoles, PC, PS4, Switch docked maybe. but it is essentially the same exact game that you got on the 3DS, except it's upscaled. That's really the biggest thing. They didn't really add any new features that I found. I looked online too. So the game really is, um, especially at the $50 price point. Um, if you've never played the game before, it is a pretty decent JRPG. If you like the old school type deal, it's definitely worth a pickup. The game aesthetically looks very nice. The music's really good. It's a composer for Final Fantasy 13. They did the
Right.
game soundtrack, and I mean, I've criticized 13 a lot, but something I'll praise it for always is its really good soundtrack. Is I mean, and it shows here in this game also. There's a lot of somber music to it, and it's made me fall asleep a lot. But like kind of like in a good way. It feels like a lullaby a little in a way.
You're not making it
Um,
sound very good.
um, but yeah, the characters are interesting enough to follow them,
Mm,
and the battle system is very simple, straightforward. It's kind of like Final Fantasy 2 a little bit in that there's no levels in the game, but you get stat increases from doing combat and using a certain weapon a lot on the character. I mean, obviously, it's much better built in FF2, but from what I played on the 3DS version, and it'll probably be the same here also, it wasn't a really hard game. You could run into some really difficult content sometimes, but like you're not supposed to. So, but as long as you're following the trail like you're supposed to, it's a pretty easy, relaxing experience game. So, if you're someone who likes the old school JRPG, um, it is one I can recommend. Maybe the $50 price might be too high right now.
right.
Maybe wait for a sale. And if you're a 3DS user or who's played the game before already on it, nothing has changed except the upscale from what I've seen. So unless you really want to play the game again, then I don't recommend it on the Switch, or at least until it's on sale.
So very cool. So basically, if you haven't played this game before, this is the best version to get. I think a version came out on the PS4 as well, didn't it?
Yeah, you can play this on PS4, PC, and Switch, I believe.
Right. So maybe if you haven't played this game before, it's where this is obviously the version you may want to try just because it looks a little bit better, but they haven't really added anything. Given that it was such a late 3DS title to come out, I think it actually like when it did come out, it was right around the time this podcast was actually a thing when this game came out on the 3DS, believe it or not. So it wasn't that long ago when this game came out. So it was kind of weird the fact that it did come out on the 3DS in the first place, to be honest. So, um, but yeah, I'll have to pick it up too. I saw $50 and I was like, I don't know. We'll have to see.
I'm sure
I
there'll be a sale eventually, but I just got the Switch Lite, so I want to play more stuff on it. I got a Hat in Time also,
Very cool.
that and Alliance Alive, so I'm just kind of going between the two. Um, they put the new DLC for Hat in Time in that, so I made that an excuse to play through it again. But yeah, Alliance Alive overall is a good game. Uh, um, I mean, if you're a JRPG fan, it's definitely right up your alley.
Very cool. Very cool.
Mhm.
Cool.
So we'll have to see. I'll have to get into it at some point. I planned on doing it this month, but I just had some unexpected expenses that came up that kind of had to push that back a little bit because I also wanted to get The Witcher. Also, I was
The
like,
Switcher.
yeah, the Switch version. Anyways, Witcher 3, and you know, just money. So I'm gonna have to wait. But luckily, RPG fan contacted me and they said, "Hey, we need somebody to record the Outer Worlds gameplay footage for the PS4." The people that were doing the review, they were based in a different country. So the promo code that they had for the PS4 version, they have multiple promo codes, but the people that were going to record the video, they weren't able to download the game because it was region locked. So I was able to come in and get that promo code, and I promised I would record game footage for them. So basically, I've been playing it since Sunday. I'm not allowed to show any game footage or spoil major story points, but uh, how can I put this? Initially, before they gave me the code, I tried to be upfront with them. I said, I don't know when you need this video footage by, but if let's say Thursday, just for that's the day before the game comes out. It comes out on Friday. If you need the game footage by Thursday, I might be able to get 8 hours in. We got to do the podcast. I got a full time job. Maybe 8 hours if we're lucky of game footage. And that was I told them that Sunday evening. They said, okay, that's that. Just get as much as you can. We have somebody else that's reviewing the game. They've completely beaten the game, etc. So I said, okay, cool. I'll do what I can do. Today's Tuesday. I got 8 hours of footage.
Nice.
So like I've stayed up pretty late the last 2 nights playing the game. It's a really good game, guys. Like you all, if you like Fallout at all, like this is so clearly Fallout. Like this game is like it's clearly a Fallout game. Like it's not even like, well, it's kind of like has Fallout element. Like no, like you might as well just call it like Fallout 5 or something because it's a Fallout game.
From
Like
what I hear, it's a more of a Fallout game than the Fallout games I've been lately.
well, and that's the thing I've heard too is from I've been trying kind of steer away from some of the reviews just because I'm so deep in the game at this point. I'm trying to kind of keep myself sheltered a little bit. But I've seen that sentiment a little bit, and I haven't played Fallout 1 or 2 really. I played Fallout 3, I played New Vegas, and I kind of steered away from 4. I feel like I've seen enough people play 4 that I got kind of an idea for. Obviously, it's not the same as playing it, but uh, I don't know if I can say this is, the the Fallout experience you've been missing all these years because I actually enjoyed Fallout 3 and New Vegas. So, and I think Obsidian worked on one of those, right? I don't know.
New Vegas.
New
New
Vegas. So,
Vegas.
New
Yeah.
Vegas was my favorite
Funny
of
enough,
those two.
New Vegas between Fallout 3, 4, and New Vegas, New Vegas is the only one of the three I actually really enjoyed.
Yeah.
I wasn't bored by.
Well, and that's the thing. Like I started off with New Vegas, like because I kind of stayed away from Fallout. I'm not really into open world games that much. But I started with New Vegas off a recommendation of a friend. Really, really enjoyed that one. And then I went to go play Fallout 3. I enjoyed that one too, but not quite as much just because I felt like it was so similar to New Vegas. Granted, New Vegas came out after that, so I realized that. But anyways, I'm getting on a tangent here. Basically, what I'm saying is out of all the Fallout games that I've played, thus far, I like this one the best. And, take that for what it is. Granted, I'm only 8 hours in, so I'm kind of in that honeymoon stage. A lot of times you really like a game, and the longer you play it, some of the faults start to come to the surface.
You
But
put a lot more in than I thought.
yeah, but it's okay, so basically, let me just get through some of like the Fallout elements that are just going to be like obviously Fallout. I'm gonna try really hard not to like spoil anything, but if you're really sensitive to spoilers and you just want to know whether or not I enjoyed it, I enjoyed it. I recommend it. But from here on, I'm gonna like talk about the gameplay a little bit. I'm gonna lightly touch the story, but I'm not gonna spoil anything too much. So just keep that in mind. And if that's not something you want to hear, maybe come back after the game comes out and you've played a little bit. But so Fallout elements. So if you remember in the Fallout games, there's always this like idea of like what the future looked like in the 1950s, like with those posters. It almost always seemed like the Jetsons type future that like this past civilization was enjoying this like new era.
Vision of the future.
Yeah, but it was like a silly interpretation of the future. Like, dude, these posts though you see all sorts of posters like that with like the guys smiling or the woman holding up a product, but it's so like 1950s with like the
Mhm.
big white text and stuff like that. That stuff's like littered like all over this game. The big billboards that are like ultra Fallout style. Like the sense of humor in this game is incredibly Fallout. Like, I'm at, one of the first town, Edgewater. It's this, uh, town where they make basically, an alien variation of tuna, right? And that's what they do is they produce tuna and at this town, and, these people, all they eat is tuna because the person that runs the town, he makes the laws too and everything like that, right? So he insists everyone eats tuna. And like there's people like running away from the town because they're like, I don't want to make tuna. I don't want to eat any tuna. And like people are like getting sick because they don't eat anything but tuna, right? So they're not getting vegetables and stuff like that. So
Y-
there's this it's really silly, but like it's kind of it's almost on a it's almost a light jab at like capitalism because the whole concept is basically that somebody that was supposed to die in our past didn't die. So, you know, all these different changes in history happen, and basically, like corporatism took over everything. And this is like in the distant future. This is like in the 2300s, right, where people have like gone out to other planets and everything like that. And basically, like corporations are running everything. So, in this particular case, that you know this guy, like this town, like all they do is produce this product. That's all they do, and like you know, they're like working like nonstop and they have to pay all these taxes to the corporation, everything like that. But it's silly too because these people they just eat nothing but tuna and like they can't figure out like why everyone's getting sick and you're like talking to them and it keeps making this like dialogue option for you to choose like maybe you guys should just eat something else like like maybe like eat an apple or something, right? So it's got that sense of humor in there that feels very, very Fallout to me. And I think the biggest thing that I can say is that it feels very, very fresh to me. Like it doesn't. I don't feel like I've played this before, and part of that might be the new setting because you know in prior Fallout games it was kind of a post-apocalyptic world, and this kind of does still have that post-apocalyptic feel to it but, you know, you're on different planets, right? So, you know, you're on one colony type deal and you handle things there and there's all sorts of branching narratives that you can do while you're there. And then eventually you leave that planet in a spaceship and then you can go to other planets or other moons or, you know, other ships and other space stations, and so it just having that different setting really, I think, makes it feel fresh, but I've noticed also, and this is we'll see, maybe it opens up more, but because it's, uh, like, because you go down to, like, let's say a space station, right? And you're on the space station, and they're like it's a big space station, a huge city and everything like that, like, and you're doing all sorts of, you know, missions while you're on that space station. It feels very open, but the pacing of the game feels very tight because, you know, it's not like in, New Vegas where you could run north, east, west, or south for, like, 20 miles, right? Like a lot of times with open world, especially Fallout, I've always kind of been scared of it in a way because like I would get so invested in this plot, then this plot, and this plot, and like I would lose track of like what I was supposed to do. And like, it's the way it's constructed, it's very easy to know what you need to do in order to progress the plot, but it also feels very natural with the other side quests that develop. It doesn't feel like a totally separate thing. It just feels like something, that you come across, during the course of your journey. So, basically what I'm trying to get at is, like, the story is just much more the pacing's really gelling for me. I really, am liking it on that front. Like, I have no concern with, uh, you know, losing my track of the main plot or anything like that. So, it's you know, it's really good. I mean, I think the things that people are gonna have a problem with, to be honest, I think is, the combat for one. It's good, like, it's not bad. It's definitely very competent, but, like, the stealth there's a stealth mode or a stealth aspect where you should be able to go low and like you know kind of like sneak up on people and there's a little indicator over enemies and it kind of lets you know like oh like they detect you or whatever. It's okay but like it's nothing the stealth aspect is not going to be it's not like above and beyond. It's not you know a Metal Gear Solid game or something, right? Or like Horizon Zero
Right.
Dawn or something like.
The stealth doesn't feel mandatory, does it?
No, I mean, like, I do feel like there's multiple ways to, uh, address enemies, attack enemies. But most of the time, there's been very few occasions where I've been able to like crawl up to an enemy and stab him in the neck or something. Uh, Most of the time, what ends up happening is like the enemy is like so focused on shooting one of my companions that I just like walk up to him with like a knife and I just start stabbing him while they're still shooting at my companion. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm currently stabbing you in the back. Why are you not turning around and shooting me? Right. Granted, I'm playing it on normal mode. So perhaps if I change it up to like the most difficult setting, it might change on there, change that difficulty a little bit, but it's the stealth isn't very good, but
From what I heard,
mhm.
the game's NPC companions that join you have dialogue that happens while you play the game. Is that a thing in the game? And if it is it good?
Dialogue during battle or
No, dialogue with from what I heard, the game while you're moving around the terrain in the
mhm,
game, your NPC companions have conversations with you or with each other, similar to like old Bioware games like
right.
Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah,
They used
so
to do stuff like that. Is that a thing in this game?
so there are companions, and like when you get off at a new location, you have to choose which companions you want to join you. You can choose two of them, and so there is that aspect to it. I've heard like little chatter, but it hasn't been usually if I wanna talk to them or see what's going on, I'll stop and I'll click on them and just say, "Okay, like, I wanna talk," and, uh we can have conversations that way. But I haven't seen anything where like, if I'm like raiding like a cabinet or something, I haven't seen them say like, "Don't do that," or "Are you sure we should do this?" But they will say stuff like, if I kneel down, they'll kneel down too, and they'll say like, "Shh," or like stuff like that. But I haven't
Hmm,
seen like full length conversations while we're moving about terrain.
hmm. So
But
it's pretty standard for the most part.
yeah, it's pretty standard, but I would say the dialogue and like uh the NPCs in general, their lines, it feels really natural and very polished. A lot of times, like, with these like kinda like create your own adventure type games, the dialogue can feel really stale. It can feel like, I can choose all these different things, but it's not really gonna matter. Like this the way they set this up and like the characters they put into this world, they're really well developed. You really understand their motivations. And there's times where you have to make decisions that are obviously gonna affect the main plot. And like I've been so conflicted on a few occasions now where I'm like, I don't know what to do. And like the fact that like I don't like this game isn't out yet. It comes out on Friday. I'm in a weird spot where like I can't like Google like like what's gonna happen if I choose this because like
Right.
there's no guide or anything. So I'm just like, "Oh, okay." So I'm just playing the game and
That's
choosing.
it's like old school, right? That's like how the games used to be.
Yeah,
Back
as
then you couldn't just very quickly find out the answer.
the best answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is the game makes it like pretty obvious. Like I don't want to say pretty obvious what the right choice is, but they give you enough information for you to kind of piece it together. But the plot develops enough to the point where like they keep dripping you new pieces of information all the way up to, uh, for example, at one point you have to switch power between one town or another. And I thought I knew which way I was gonna go, then I thought I was going another way after I found something else out, and then I found something else out, and I was like, "I'm going back the other way," and then I thought for sure, like, I knew what I was doing, and then I got right up to that point where I was gonna make a decision, and then, like, one of my teammates, my companions was like, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And then they started trying to tell me I should do the other thing, and I was like, "Man, you're making a really good case right now," like,
Yeah.
and I was like, "I don't know what to do. I can't Google this." And, like,
Right.
so, I don't wanna spoil what I did, but, it's just a really good experience. It's a very good Fallout experience. It feels very like, the combat, like I said, it feels very I don't wanna say PlayStation 3-ish, but it does feel modern, but it's very serviceable in that sense. I mean, there are some very cool things, like, there's a delay thing. I don't know. I can't remember I think it's delation or
Oh,
something
like
like
the
that.
slowdown thing from like Red Dead Redemption.
Right. I think well, it's kind of similar to like the VATS mode that you would have in the other Fallout games, but
Mhm.
basically the idea is because you are in stasis, like the game starts off with you in stasis and then somebody wakes you up because you're in stasis for so long that your body's having a hard time adjusting to the natural flow of time that apparently you can like slow time down. It doesn't make any sense, but whatever. They tried, right? They tried to
Okay. Okay.
make a reason for this. And basically it happens where you'll press R1 and then your whole screen goes purple and you can only do it for a few seconds in the beginning and then your meter gradually builds as you get more perks and everything like that. But uh, the screen slows down, and you're able to take your time and like aim in on an enemy, and you move at natural speed, but the enemy's moving at a very slow speed. So you're able to get really easy headshots and stuff like that. So
Mm.
usually, what I do for that is when I'm walking down a trail or something like that, and all of a sudden I'm getting shot at, or like one of my companion yells like, "Oh, it's on the left," or something like that. Like, and I'll have like a barrage of like machine gun fire hitting me. I'll just turn to the left and like immediately just uh, you know turn that on. That way I can just like reassess what's going on, and then like I'll get cover real quick. So like it's exciting in that sense, but I don't know. I feel like I could up the difficulty a little bit because, like I said, sometimes the AI feels smart, but sometimes it just feels really dumb. Where like I'm like standing like right next to NPC, stabbing them, and like they're still trying to shoot one of my companions, and I'm like,
You
dude,
know,
I'm stabbing you, like.
when you say it like that, it feels like a Fallout game more and more.
Yeah. So it's a really good game though. I mean, I think the biggest highlights for me are just like the crazy humor. It's I mean, dude, this game is hilarious. Like some of the characters are just hysterical. Like I wish I could spoil more of this for you guys, but I don't want to do that. But some of these characters are just outrageously outlandish. And so that's a big highlight for me. Again, the pacing of the game is really, really smooth. It's just you automatically know where you need to go. I mean, it's really good. So
Sounds
def
like the world and story heavily carries the game, which that's similar to how New Vegas worked. It was the characters and the story that really
yeah,
held you and drove you through. Because I mean, the combat has never been special in these Fallout games. It's like,
sure,
but I mean, but they work. They feel comfortable. Like you're familiar with it. You know what to do. It helps you engage with the world even
right.
more because, like, you're already comfortable with what you're doing here, so it gives you more room to do things like that. So, I'm fine if the combat isn't like 100% great or innovative or new or refreshing, as long as it's good enough and serviceable enough to be like comfortable, feel good. It like does it at least feel really good to play the game?
Well, yeah, and like yes, yes. To answer your question, yes. Like I don't mean to say like the combat's bad or that it's like the gameplay's bad because I definitely think that people that enjoy Fallout games like like, I don't enjoy, like, at the beginning of the game where it, like, lets you choose, like, all your stats and everything like that, and, like, I then I gotta, like, design my face, and I gotta design all the perks and, like, what all my specialties and everything like that. I don't particularly enjoy that type of stuff, but, like, it is really in depth in that aspect, like you would expect in a Fallout game, right? Where, you have, melee weapons, and you have, your medical and your science and your tech and your hacking abilities and everything like that. So it's really in depth on that front, and it does feel very polished. But yeah, it's not gonna if you're expecting to go into this game thinking that it's going to be this a God of War 5 gameplay or something. It's
A technical milestone in the
uh,
combat department.
right. It's but it's still passably good. You'll still enjoy it. It's just not they're not reinventing the wheel here. You've played this before, but um
It sounds like the game is really good in the areas it needs to be good in because if there's anything like with Fallout 4 when I played that, it was so ridiculously dull playing that game. Like it did like the humor didn't really feel like it was there. The amount of choices you got didn't feel there at all either. And it was annoying having to go back to settlements all the time. It felt like a chore playing that
Mm,
game.
yeah.
I'm glad to hear that it sounds like the Outer Worlds. It's like just like a very strong story focused game.
Yeah.
And just like something new feeling on top of that. I'm kind of sick of you know the same exact like atomic wasteland type of deal
Right, right,
that
right.
Right.
Fallout has. So it's great to hear that like this crazy kooky space esque type shooter. Because when I watch the previews, it's like the unique fashion of this game's world and everything just like captures me. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to play the game till near Christmas time, just because I have a good enough backlog and I've been playing with my Switch Lite more. But I do really want to eventually get into it. I'm sure they're going to have some sale in the Epic Store for it.
Well, that is one thing. I would say I know before I said I wanted to get this game on the PS4, and obviously that's the version I've been playing, and it plays great on there. But I would recommend that if you have the ability to pick this up, I would pick it up on PC. To be honest, I don't know about the Switch version. I don't know how that'll work, but it's a very beautiful game. I'm sure it runs fine on the Switch, but I think you would wanna play this either on PC or PS4 if visuals are your thing, but, definitely PC to have that mouse because I will say, like, some of these items that you can pick up are very tiny, and you have to get, like, your cursor, like, right over the item in order to, get the prompt to come up to pick the item up, and it's kinda baffling because 'cause I'm like sometimes, like, I'm just, like, in a hurry, and I'm like, "God damn it, just get the cursor over the item," you know? So if you had a mouse, you could just easily click on all these things and just move on.
That's why I like playing first person shooters on a PC over console,
Yeah,
just because it's really hard for me to aim with like the right analog and just be efficient at shooting. Like with the mouse, I feel like I just hover over to that spot and it just feels so much easier. Like I don't know how other people do it with controllers. It's just uh I like for first person shooters, I feel like I have to play on the mouse and keyboard to be
yeah,
like decent at it.
yeah. It's definitely. I think it definitely would be a better experience on the PC for sure. But again, like I'm getting by just fine on the PS4, so I'm starting to get a little zoned in on like how close I have to get to the item. You know, I still struggle every now and again when I try to like loot bodies or whatever that yeah, I killed. You know, take their various items and stuff like that. Sometimes a little prompt like I have to get like move left and right and forward and backwards to try to get the prompt over the body to get the items and stuff like that, which is a little annoying. But I playing it on my big screen TV. I got my sound bar, so it's there's pluses and minuses to which way you want to play it. So
hmm Now I hear the Switch version isn't going to be coming out at release. That's going to be at a late sometime 2020.
you
That's
know,
supposed to be.
yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Okay, I'm not
I
sure.
think that's what they said, right?
Yeah, I know it's coming out later. I'm not sure the specific time. I'm It's a very beautiful game. I don't doubt, obviously, with The Witcher 3 coming out on the Switch, that they could get a Switch port on the Switch or, yeah, Switch version anyways. But,
God of War director said that
it
the
was black magic.
getting The Witcher 3 on the Switch was like dark magic or something.
Yeah, so I'm sure it'll come on there, but the issues I'm having, well, like, the small little issues, like picking items up with the PS4 version, I can only imagine that would be amplified on the Switch with the small screen. Right? Because it's gonna be even, like, a smaller amount of space for you to, like, visualize where you need to put it at, and maybe that's one of the things they're working out, kinda trying to make the sensitivity a little less so you can just be in the vicinity to pick some of these items up, but it's not a deal breaker. I'm doing fine.
Yeah, a tiny little 720p screen, but I don't think the graphics of that game are so demanding that it couldn't be on the Switch.
I
Like
mean
they'll obviously have to like lower the specs
yeah.
obviously to get it to work on the Switch efficiently. And
Sure.
it'll probably be 30 frames per second at best on the Switch, but I'm just thinking to myself, looking at the game, it doesn't look that graphically intense that they couldn't dumb down the graphics a little bit for the Switch.
Yeah, it's definitely, and that's kind of what I'm getting at is like they got The Witcher 3 on the Switch. This game is it's a very beautiful game from aesthetic standpoint. I think it's got some really neat looking lighting effects and stuff like that in certain areas that really make the locations pop out. But I don't see it not being able to run on the Switch. Obviously, it's not going to look as good. They're going to have to take some compromises here and there with the way it looks. But and I guess if that's your only way to play the game, you're really looking forward to it, then that's probably an option. But definitely PC if that's something you can do. So
Yeah, I wouldn't ever recommend a game like this or Witcher 3 on the Switch unless the Switch was is like your only actual game console,
Hmm.
or you want to play it portable purely. There's like no other reason. I can't think of any other reason to get like something like Outer Worlds and Witcher on the Switch over like on the console or PC.
yeah,
Now, what
if you
would be really cool, which I forgot the game. It was like Divinity 2
mm,
has a feature that they released it on the Switch just recently, but you can transfer that save between the Switch and the PC version. Now, imagine if both Witcher and Outer World, games like Witcher and Outer World, had the ability to let you transfer your save file from the Switch to the PC. That would be amazing. Of course, you would have to own copies of both on like both the Switch and the PC, but the idea of like wanting to play on the go, and then when you get home, you can plug your Switch in and you can just transfer it to the save to their cloud to the PC and play on there.
yeah.
That's a awesome idea.
Yeah, I've been kind of thinking pondering that myself, just like how cool that would be to be able to transfer between these different platforms easily. And I think that you're starting to see some of that leaning towards that with Microsoft wanting to work a little bit more with Nintendo on some of their games and stuff like that. I'm sure we're going to see something like that in the future. But I mean, yeah, I mean, if you could just play, you know, I could see myself being a high schooler and playing till 2 o'clock in the morning on my PC, and then going to school with my Switch and picking up where I left off and playing it on there, and then getting home and then like syncing it back up with my PC again. I could definitely see doing that. That would be really really cool for sure.
Yeah, or if you play on the PC and you're going to be on a Carnival cruise the whole week with no internet, it's like, hey, you just
Well,
transfer it to the Switch and
that's a very n- uh niche market. Like it-
Well, what about
I think
people
that's
who travel for work,
it'll
right? And
be
people who have to take business trips all over the country.
it'll
That
be
would
your
be a
turn eventually, gentlemen.
yeah.
that'd be a good feature.
Yeah. I think
Not just for Carnival cruises,
Mhm.
but
anyways.
not excluding them either.
Obviously, Eric's alluding to his honeymoon. So,
It
yeah,
was a good time though.
yeah.
That's good.
That's
Mhm.
that's gonna be the asterisk after every comment like that. But it was a good time though.
No internet, but a good time.
No, yeah, it sounds like it was. So, anyways, The Outer Worlds, definitely recommend going to pick it up. It comes out this Friday. I know RBG fan, they're gonna have a review at some point. I don't know the specific date. I don't really want to put that out there, and because they haven't told me the specific date that the review's going up. They're just still trying to consolidate some of the dude, I've just been recording, like, hours of footage and then, like, saying it to them, and I'm like, "Dude, this must suck to watch, like, 8 hours of somebody's game footage and try to make, like, a 10-minute video out of it or however long it's gonna be." Uh, you know? So I feel like I need to put, like, time codes, like, "Hey, I got back from the bathroom at this time," you know? And stuff like that. So, it's not just, 10 minutes of me, like, in the shop menu or something, but, anyways, definitely, look forward to that, so y'all can check that out.
Yeah, it was very nice of them to let our channel play it early and give some early impressions on it.
Yeah.
It does make me more excited to play it, but like I said, it's going to be a later date purchase for me.
Dude, you're gonna
Uh,
like it. I'm telling you. It's Like
Oh, I'm sure I'm gonna like it.
from the moment that, like, you hit the start button, like, it has this, like, all, like, spacey, like, music and, like, like, it just wraps you up in its world, like, I'm just like, "Wow, this is exactly what I needed, and I didn't know I needed this game." Like, I was just like, this has got me back into, like, Western styled games, like, it's really good, so, um,
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
yeah. But anyways, so I'm sure that I'll give some more thoughts on this game, next podcast. At that point, the game will have been out for a few days, so that should be exciting. But let's go ahead and transition to our next topic here. We have Final Fantasy 14, the live action television show. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago. Eric, I think you were out that episode, but basically the premise here, or the idea here, is the same company that or the same studio that's working on the Witcher television show, the Witcher adaptation. They got the go ahead to make a Final Fantasy live action TV series, and basically there was this article on IGN where they're interviewing some of the showrunners, or some of the people. I shouldn't say showrunners because they're still trying to figure all that out, but some of the people developing this show, and just asking them some questions. And one of the things that came up that was kind of interesting was around the idea of why they chose Final Fantasy 14. And one of the interesting things that
Because it's awesome.
well, besides that, one of the developers, they said that Square Enix literally said, "Hey, which Final Fantasy do you want to make a show out of?" Like, they gave them the option, right? And they had to have all these discussions, which one would be the best Final Fantasy. And apparently, like, Final Fantasy 7 was like a very high, like, it was a tie between Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 14, which game they were going to make a show based on. And
Mm.
I I think that we can get into, like, some of our thoughts on why Final Fantasy 14 was probably the best bet, but just the idea that, like, they could choose any of them, like, that just blows my mind, because I've always wanted a Final Fantasy 6 Netflix series, right? Where it's just like that 10-episode arc season, like, just give me live action Final Fantasy 6. It'll probably suck, but in my mind, it's awesome. Like, a dude with, like, all the Magitech armor, and just, like,
Mhm.
dude, like, that would be so sick. And, like, the idea that, like, that could have been this could have been the thing where we
Could
had
have happened, yeah.
where we had Final Fantasy 6 on here. But obviously they went with Final Fantasy 14 here. Um, so
I
one
can
thing
tell you why they probably picked 14.
Well, I think obviously for creative freedom is one of the biggest things, and the fact that it's currently very popular also. But go ahead.
Well, now that you said it.
What, creative
But
freedom?
yes, but essentially, this game is you all know it's an online MMO, and in these online MMOs, they usually put a lot more effort into the world and lore of the game because it's a continuing experience. So there's always lore being added. There's new places in the world being added. There's always the game like this in particular. There's always small stories being added to the overall big picture story. So this is a game that has a lot of material to work with. Like if they make a TV show, they can do things like the politics of Ishgard. They can focus on maybe one of the three nations. They don't have to make a TV show based around the main characters like the Scions and you in the game. They can make a story about some off random event that like we never see. Um, or they can go into perspective or deeper things, like you can go into the oppression of Doma and Orthard. There's so much material to work with, and you don't have to impede on the main story. So you can kind of like just make what you want, but just obviously be abide by the rules of the world.
Mm.
And that's a lot easier to do when you have a lot more material to work with. Like you mentioned Final Fantasy VI, and that's a fantastic story, but it the what you see in the world it's very contained to that main story. Like
Sure.
you don't have too much you don't have too much side stuff that you could like work around with in terms of like a big world scale of like of that kind of game. I'm not saying you couldn't make a TV
Sure.
show of that. I'm just saying with something like Final Fantasy 14 and arguably Final Fantasy 11, 11 is the less popular game. So obviously, they probably picked 14, but it 14 just has so much more material to work with
Yeah.
that they can just make anything. Like they could make like a cooking show like people man, this guy wants to be the greatest chef in Limsa Lominsa. Like they can do
Mhm.
stuff like that because there's culinary guilds and everything.
They could
Like there's just everything to work with.
they could make Daddy of Light.
Yeah. That's what I was actually thinking that it was originally going to be, is it was going to be a kind of like a sword art online or like dot hack type of thing where it's like people in the real world. It would be like a drama series maybe, and they interact between the real world and the game and stuff.
Yeah.
But from what I hear, it's not going to be something like that. So
Well, they okay, so they kind of went over some of the things that Eric just said that hey, like the fact that we can have our own main character and it's not going to be an issue with the fans. Obviously, that would be something that would be an issue if they did Final Fantasy VII, for example. Who's Cloud going to be? Like basically what they're going through with The Witcher 3, like people complaining about the cast and like, oh, this person's not a good fit for this role, right?
right,
They don't have to deal with that with this game because obviously there's not a main character. There's obviously they said people in the story of Final Fantasy 14 they're going to make appearances or have roles, etc. But they can have their own cast of characters, and there won't be, you know, uh, it's going to be an easy way for everyone to get into this world, whether they're familiar with Final Fantasy or not. But one thing they kept bringing up that I thought was kind of weird is they kept emphasizing that there's going to be airships, Sid's going to be in here, and there's going to be lots and lots of chocobos. And like in particular, like the Sid thing kind of cracked me up because, as any Final Fantasy fan knows, although there is a character named Sid, it's not like they keep making it sound like, oh, there's this returning Final Fantasy character, Sid. Like it's like, well, clearly, like it's not. That's that's just a new person that happens to
Yeah.
be named Sid.
Uh,
That's
well, the way Sid is
well,
done in
see,
the narrative of the game, you could actually have him be at multiple places at once. So
right,
you could put him in like the story of something else because he and throughout the game he has a major place in the A Realm Reborn story, but after that he has minor appearances in the main story, and he's used more for the bigger side quest stories like the 8-man raid contents and stuff. Like he's involved in those stories, and like I said, he usually has just an important role, but usually minor roles after the A Realm Reborn story. So you
right.
could really put Sid in like any story in that game or that show.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know that they're trying, right? I think they actually said they went through and played Final Fantasy 14 and walked around in the world, and that's a good sign. We know with, for example, with like Tabata when he was directing Final Fantasy games, he never actually went back and played any of them. So and I think that kind of showed, unfortunately, with some of his decisions. But the fact that they went out and played Final Fantasy 14, that's very positive, and it seems like they're trying to really appeal to the fan base, which is good. They bring up this humorous quote where they say, literally, there was no draft of the script that does not have the note more chocobos. One of the notes that I gave this note and I got the worst stink eye in a meeting. I said, guys, I know everyone wants chocobos. Page 3, someone rides in on a chocobo for no reason. It's distracting. It's silly. It's too early. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? Everyone should be riding on chocobos in the opening. So no, there'll be chocobos out the wazoo. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just, I'm in. Like, I'll watch it. Like, It might be terrible, but,
Yeah,
like,
we'll see.
yeah, this might be the very best, non-game Final Fantasy, right? Because, we have Final Fantasy Kingsglaive, not very good. Spirits Within wasn't really a Final Fantasy movie. Um, what else?
Avid Children
Advent Children,
and
not
old anime way back in the day.
which
Hashtag not my Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah.
A lot of people say.
yeah. So, they're not well known for quality in this regard. So, it's I mean, it's kind of cool, but I think with Final Fantasy 7, they said that was the second pick here, and I think it's kind of obvious why they wouldn't choose that, even though it was tempting because it is so popular. But with the
Oh,
game coming out when it's coming out, I suspect that, like, they didn't wanna conflict with the game and the story that's in the game with the Netflix series. They're already seeing some of that with, the Witcher show where people are complaining that, you're following the books, you're not following the game. I mean, it's just something they don't have to deal with. I mean, we kinda saw this with the, Star Trek TV shows and the movies where, different companies own the TV show and the movies. So they have to have these contracts with each other where the show can come out in one year, but then the next year a show can't come out, but a movie can come out. Then the following year a show can come out. And it's just because they don't want, like, they're trying to control the attention of the audience, and they don't
Hmm.
want it to, like, take away from each other where maybe the somebody might like the Final Fantasy VII Remake, but they might not like the show, right? And because they don't like the show, they think the 7 Remake is the show and
Right.
and and stuff like that. So
here's the big difference too, is that this is a show that's not actually being made by Square Enix. They're producing the show probably, and they're probably going to have a lot of creative control, but they're not directly making it. All these movies made before have been like made like straight from Square Enix, like the Advent Children movie, the
Hmm.
Final Fantasy Spirits. Then they made a movie studio, and the one movie they made bombed so badly it immediately shut down. But they did make one.
right,
So this is actually them giving their property to someone else, which I mean, it's happened before. Like we have the Legend of the Crystals, that was a sequel to Final Fantasy V. That was like an anime made by like someone else. And we had, what was it called? Like Final Fantasy U Universe? That anime? I forgot.
Yeah. I can't think of the name.
But I remember I had that guy with like the elemental gun that like he shoots it and like some summon comes out. Um,
sure.
and the two little kids, but I forgot the name. I think it's Universe. But yeah, they've done stuff like that in the past with mixed results. That show, the one I just talked about, wasn't really good.
Right.
Like I was really excited to watch it, but the animation is like actually really bad.
Yeah,
And
I thought the Brotherhood anime was decent.
yeah, those were actually really good. That actually hyped me up for 15. Just too bad 15 itself wasn't good.
Right. So,
But
but
whoever
yeah,
did those did a good job. So it really varies, but I think if I will have to worry about the show or not will probably depend on how good the Witcher TV show is.
right.
So if that show is good, then I'll probably be a little more confident the Final Fantasy 14 TV show will be good.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think that the fact that they can basically create their own story here is really the biggest advantage here. And honestly, like, if you think about it, just like Final Fantasy 14 does, where it has little Easter eggs to all the other Final Fantasy games, I'm sure the TV show will have little nods to all the other Final Fantasy games at some point if the show continues on, right? Because it would just feel natural in this world to have some kind of, like, Easter egg hinting at Final Fantasy 7 or, Final Fantasy 8, or somebody could be wearing the dress from Final Fantasy 10, right?
For
Uh,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, those are very easy things they could do. So,
Hmm. And another thing is really that when, like, say if when they did make a Final Fantasy 7 one instead of 14, I think there's a lot of fan expectation of what people want from the show. Like, if you do something that feels so disconnected from some of the source material, like Soldiers or Shinra or something like that, then they're gonna feel like this doesn't feel like a Final Fantasy VII show at all. But if you make it like too connected, like it's like filled with nothing but like soldiers and like Crisis Core type thing with Shinra and everything, then people are going to go, "Oh, it's like it's like too much, or like it feels too lazy, or something like that." They're
Right.
just taking the
Copy
source
paste.
material.
Yeah.
Shows like that, I don't think you're just going to make anyone happy, no matter
Right.
how good it is. So something like again, like something like 14 is just so open ended that like even if the show is bad, then like it will not
Affect the
affect
game.
the
Yeah.
game in any way, shape, or form.
Sure. One thing I am kind of anxious to see is once they start announcing the casting for this show, I'm just interested to see who that cast is going to be because I wonder if, with we've seen with Square with them re-releasing or remastering their old games, a lot of times they'll kind of smooth out the characters' faces and make them look a little bit younger. We saw that with Final Fantasy X, for example. Titus looks a little bit younger on the cover art. Some people remarked that Final Fantasy VIII Squall looks a little younger, even though it kind of meshes a little bit better with his actual age. But I wonder if Square is going to want them to have a cast of like 16 and 14-year-olds to try to appeal to like that teenage audience. And like it's going to turn into like a Saved by the Bell and like the medieval times, right?
Let's hope
I
not. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping like it's an actual because at 14, like the game itself, usually like most of the time, like I mean, obviously it depends on what character you choose and everything, but they're not like they're not kids, they're like grown adults. So
Oh
they'll
no,
be
the Astians are going to cause another calamity, and the prom's tonight.
right, right. So I could see them doing something like that, which would just that would just be pouring salt in the wound because I remember, like, when the Spirits Within came out, and it was, like, in the theater and stuff, and, like, I had so many people that were like, "Dude, you're into Final Fantasy, right? I didn't really like that movie, man. Like, I don't think I'll like Final Fantasy." And, like, I would just be, like, losing my mind, like, "No, that's not Final Fantasy. That has nothing to do with it's just called Final Fantasy, like, it's not Final Fantasy. That's not what I'm like, that's not what I like." Right? So, like, if they do this with this television show where it's, like, super cheesy and campy and corny and, it's
Yeah.
got, like, 13-year-olds, like, leading battles and stuff, like, I'm just
You're gonna lose it all over again.
I don't think
yeah.
it will. I think it'll. My prediction is I think it'll be a mature show. Um, and they, if there was something, if I had to choose something
Mhm.
for them to get into, I think it would be really cool to dive further into the political side of Ishgard. Ishgard has like uh, before you go into Heaven's Ward, Ishgard is set up. It has four houses that pretty much play like lords, and then there is a high priest that's above all of them. Um, and these four houses are always in conflict with each other in some way. Not to the point that they would start a war with each other, but they're always kind of just like being petty with one another to get further in under the high priest graces. And of course, there is the dragon song war that they're in. They're fighting dragons constantly
Sure.
for it. So there's a lot of material you can work with right there, and it's a very mature setting on top of that. So
Interesting.
they could do something like that, and it'd be really cool.
Yeah. I suspect that this is gonna be loosely based on 14, to be honest. I think it's gonna be based in the world itself. I think they're gonna have nice little, like, nods to the game and everything like that, and I think that, obviously they've talked endlessly about having Sid in there, um, that there's gonna be chocobos and Magitech, uh, so that's cool, but I don't know how in depth they're gonna get with the actual story of the game, like, I mean, I don't know if it's just gonna be loosely based on it or if it's actually gonna be, like a deep dive and, like, further emphasize the story and like tell you new details you didn't get to see in the game. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we'll definitely have to see when it comes
Yep.
to that.
Oh, Pat, you know what it is?
What's that?
When they were trying to decide between for the show FF7 or FF14, they must watch this podcast, and they were planning with FF7, and they had the cloud wig ready to go, right? But then they heard your complaints about the Geralt Witcher
Oh my
wig
god.
for Henry Cavill, right? And then they looked at the cloud wig they had ready to go, and they said, you know what? Maybe 14 would be a better idea, right?
They're like, God, I knew we shouldn't have got that at the dollar store.
Sorry, Zac Efron. No FF7 live action. Now, if there was a casting, if I had to pick just like a casting choice for something, you guys won't know who I'm talking about, but there are two characters I can imagine having the role of these characters. If anyone plays 14, they'll get it. If not, remember what I said, play 14 and be like, oh yeah, totally.
Okay.
Keanu Reeves for Harshfont
Not gonna happen.
and Dwayne The Rock Johnson
Not gonna happen.
for Hildebrand.
Okay. Well,
All
You
right.
can look them up later if you want.
this would be like a huge show if like they had those two people in there. That would be starring Keanu Reeves and The Rock. You know,
Yeah.
this would just be like epic. Everyone would be watching. So, anyways,
You know, I know he's dead, but I always imagine Heath Ledger could play Cloud.
I thought you meant Keanu Reeves or The Rock was dead, and I was like, Jesus,
No.
when did this
No, I
happen?
was saying, like, I know Heath Ledger is dead, but I
Keanu
actually
Reeves
imagine
is
him being a
never-
pretty good Cloud.
Keanu Reeves is like a million years old, but yeah, Heath Ledger, that'd be a pretty cool. I think Heath Ledger in just practically anything.
Yeah.
So,
God rest his soul.
but yeah, very cool. So, definitely interested to hear more. And Jesus Christ, the fact that they could have chosen any Final Fantasy, that just blows my mind. I've always thought that Square was kind of a little more guarded with that. So,
Right. Yeah.
very, very interesting.
These TV show folks have good taste.
Well, we'll see if you're still doing that after they run your favorite game into like the ground and like bury it 6 feet under
Whatever.
with
That
nonsense.
won't make the game any better or worse.
Oh, you'll be bitter about it.
If it happens, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll be bitter about it, but I'm not going to be like I can't play 14 anymore because the TV show just ruined it for me.
No. Yeah. I understand. It'll just be a constant like trying to tell everyone that 14 is a lot better than the TV show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this
Don't
Let's-
listen to the TV show's lies. The story is good.
people are gonna be like, yeah, I don't need to play the game. I watched the TV show. I already know the story.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Don't be that person.
That'll be me.
Yeah, just don't say that in front of me.
I don't need to play Shadowbringers. I watched the TV show.
Oof.
Oh,
Big oof. Yeah.
Anyways, so we have a Discord question from Decoy Manta, who says, you have the power to take one game franchise and give it to another game developer of your choosing. Which franchise do you choose? And which developer? So, what do you guys got? We're trying to take a franchise and give that franchise to a different developer. I want to give Final Fantasy to Mistwalker. It's just, I don't know if that counts, but that counts to me.
mm.
Even though they make mobile games, let's just say they had the funding and everything.
I would give everything that Konami has to anyone else because they don't make games anymore.
Just like the first
Yeah.
studio you find on Steam.
Honestly, though, I mean, I'm like having half truth of that. If Konami really isn't just going to do anything with these franchises anymore, something like Metal Gear, I think, can be put to rest because I think we've done almost everything we can with it.
There's
in
more
terms of
money.
the story.
There's more money to be made.
Unless you want to do like a Metal Gear Rising 2, which I would be for that. But franchises like Castlevania, and I'm trying to think of other Konami IPs. I'm sure they'll pop up in my head soon enough. But Castlevania is probably one of the more famous examples. I would give someone like them over to like Capcom.
Who would you give the Mass Effect series to?
The Mass Effect series. Mm,
Maybe the Outer Worlds guys, right? Obsidian.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Mass Effect is known for being like a very high budget feeling title. So there's a lot of expectations that come from it. So really, if it would just be handing it from one major company to another. So I don't know if it would benefit from it.
Well,
It's like just going from like going from one uh
so
company like EA over to Activision or Ubisoft or something. It's like the only way it can meet the expectations is to be behind a really big AAA company for Mass
yeah,
Effect.
and I don't know if his what the framing of the question was intended. If he meant to say, obviously, they would have the funding or whatever, because otherwise that's a huge pigeonhole. I mean, could Miss Walker make Final Fantasy 16? No. They had a hard time making a
Mhm.
mobile game, they obviously would not be able to do that. But assuming they have the funding or the enough investors, or maybe uh, EA could just say, "Hey, we'll pay for it, but you guys make it, right? And then we'll split profits."
I would give like in general, I'd probably give the whole BioWare company to someone else,
Yeah,
That's
or
kind of
let
how.
or give BioWare a ton of money and let them be their own independent thing and be like, make what you want, be creative.
dude,
You don't have any
I would want to see something crazy. Like
crap behind you.
let's give Mass Effect to Game Freak. They make Pokemon games. Let's see what they
Well,
could do with it.
you can see with the little town hero they released lately
Oh yeah,
that got very lukewarm to
it
not
got
so great
terrible reviews.
reviews.
Yeah,
It
Yeah.
sounds like they need to just stay with Pokemon.
they make one type of game and they're really good at that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, that didn't get good reviews.
it's like okay, back to what we know, guys.
Yeah. Stan, can you think of anything?
Well, kind of along those lines, like Eric was saying, like just take all of BioWare and give them a new publisher or send them somewhere else. It's cheating, right? Because I don't want to just move the franchise. I want to move the whole the whole developer under a different publisher,
Yeah.
and it's Tri-Ace, right? The developers of Valkyrie Profile and Star Ocean. I would want to move them out of Square Enix altogether. It'll never happen, but because especially for Valkyrie Profile, we haven't had a proper Valkyrie Profile game since they made a game on the DS, and that was back in like 2008 or 2009, I think. It's been like 10 years since we've actually had a Valkyrie Profile game.
You know,
So
I think Ian will in the chat right now will like me saying this. I think Mistwalker should be acquired by Capcom. Capcom funds all of Mistwalker's RPG projects, and then Capcom's like, you have full creative freedom, Mr. Sakaguchi, to make what you want, and we will give you the resources needed for it to make whatever RPGs you want. You just make sure they're good.
mm,
And they're like, here's money.
yeah,
So let's say Bill Gates can just no. He'll just buy it, but he's like, I don't know anything about this stuff. You do whatever you need to. I'll just pay the bills.
He did say something that handing stuff to Sony themselves is not a half bad idea.
He says Mass Effect and Naughty Dog, which yeah.
Sony does have a lot of good ethics in their games. Like they don't really do the microtransaction thing and stuff like that. They make like very solid single player experiences. So um, jumping in, throwing an IP over to them. Uh, but if anything, I wish Sony would just like bring some dormant IPs back, like Wild Arms or Legend of Dragoon,
Yeah.
Yeah, they
stuff
should
like that.
for sure.
But
That's
Well, that would be
yeah,
cool
that's
if, since they're not doing anything with the Legend of Dragoon, if they would give that away to something else, someone else that was willing to do something with it, right?
hmm
Because the Legend of Dragoon's one of those games where people either want like another game in that, like a sequel or of some sorts, or just for that game to be re-released or remade. So
hmm
giving that away, even honestly, even if like Square Enix was able to make that game, I'm sure like why not? You're not doing anything with it, you know.
mhm.
yeah, for
But
the
we
most part,
might do something with it, like
yeah,
10 years later. But we might do something with it.
yeah, they're just holding
What's
on to that the rights for it. Yeah.
They hold the
what?
rights, and they just hope there's some like weird resurgence cult following to something.
Yeah, like 30 years from now, kids are gonna be like, "What's that Dragoon game? I heard it's a legend. What's it called?" And then at that point, Sony will be like, "Now's the time. Now's the time."
Really, I don't know why Sony isn't jumping back into making AAA JRPGs. That's a gold mine right there.
yeah.
And they can just easily just remake Legend of Dragoon or make another Wild Arms game or make a new IP in general, and it would, I guarantee it would sell very well.
Yeah, the cult following for that game is here now. Like they you remember the one of the guys at the Blue Point Games who's known for the remasters like of Shadow of the Colossus. He just
Mhm.
posed the question on Twitter of like should like oh it would
Oh
be
yeah,
good it would be fun to try Legend of Dragoon or something. He didn't confirm anything. It was just like a very
right. I think we talked
like
about that, didn't we?
Yeah.
yeah, and then the responses on Twitter to him were like people were like, yes, like we want this, you know.
You should
So
do this. Yeah, we
yeah,
would buy this.
people are ready for it.
We want to give you money. Do this.
That is a game that would benefit from a remake just so much. I know I've said on the podcast before, but Legend of Dragoon is like one like the top three games in my head that I think would benefit from a remake so much because I loved the game, but there is like some poor translation. There is some definite outdated graphical aspects to it,
The
especially
voice
like
acting is
NPCs
yeah.
Yeah.
and
Voice acting is
obviously the
terrible.
cutscenes. The voice acting is horrible in it.
Yep. Yeah, it was
Um,
that early 3D that just sometimes it doesn't age well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
recreating that and just making a new modern JRPG. People like you already have the story, the structure, the world, the areas. Like you just, remake the whole game itself. I guarantee that game will sell so much.
the thing is, they wouldn't even have to like remake it like a AAA remake, right? Where it's like cutting edge graphics. It could just be like something we saw, not obviously in that art style, but something like a Link's Awakening remake where it's obviously touched up, but it's not, um, it didn't take them 13 years to make, right?
Mhm.
Just something that's, a little bit easier to look at. I mean, they could do something like that, and that could be definitely very cool.
Mhm.
So, Keon's saying Blue Point Vagrant Story.
That could be good as well.
Yeah.
For the Sony and Mistwalker thing, I think the only problem I have with that is it would limit it to a singular console. Like if Capcom acquired Mistwalker, it's third party. You can put it on the PS4, you can put it on the PC, you can put it on the Xbox, you can put it on the Switch. Like the games have an opportunity to reach a mass audience. And that's the one thing with Mistwalker is like every game they've had is like just been bound to one console.
Yeah.
Like I hope they like just be able to
Well, the
spread
thing
out.
is, yeah, they're working on that one game, Fantasian, right now, or Sakaguchi is, anyways, and it's
Yeah, for
coming
Apple Arcade. I'm
exclusively.
keeping attention to my phone and tablet for that, but I have not seen anything about it yet. Like they made
Yeah,
it sound like it was going to be
launch.
a launch game, but I think it's probably a launch window game.
Well, it looked really cool because they're taking pictures. Well, they're building the like towns and such in the maps and real life, right? These like kind of like 5 and 6 inch buildings and roads and everything like that. Then they're taking all these pictures of the town, and then they're having a NPC, or well, not NPC because you're playing the character, but like a character sprite like running around in this like town that they built, It's a really cool idea, and but yeah, dude, Apple Arcade exclusive for right now. That sucks. It sucks because that's just such a high high barrier to entry because I don't have an Apple device. I don't, I don't have an Apple phone or anything. So,
Hmm.
in order for me to play this, I'd have to spend like $100 to $200 just to play this game. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um. Anyways, you guys got anything else?
I just find
Mm,
it interesting that we chose like dormant franchises for the most part, right? I guess than Mass Effect we mentioned, all the other stuff is IPs that the developers are just sitting on, right?
yeah, it's more
Yeah.
like we want dormant IPs to come back. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's part of the appeal because it's not currently being worked on, and you could like, see what some of these other companies could actually do with it, and like a
Yeah.
willingness to do that. With Blue Point, there was a willingness to do a Legend of Dragoon remake,
Hmm.
whereas Sony's just like they wouldn't even put the Legend of Dragoon on the PlayStation Classic. Like
And they own that. Yeah.
they own it, like they wouldn't have to pay any royalties, like nothing. Like why would you not do that? You know?
Don't worry, we took care of that slight flaw to the mini
Yeah, I
console.
don't know. My PlayStation Classic has a Legend of Dragoon on it, but anyways,
Yeah.
um, so but I think that wraps us up for this week. So thank you again to RPG Fan for letting me play the Outer Worlds and being able to record footage for y'all. So make sure that you go to rpgfan.com, check out their Fire Emblem Three Houses review on YouTube and the written review, and then probably later this week there'll be a Outer Worlds review. I haven't seen it yet. I've been kind of talking with the reviewer a little bit, just trying to hone in on what he's going to talk about specifically so I can make sure I can try to capture footage of that. But it looks like it's going to be a pretty good review. There's going to be a YouTube version as well. So if you want to stay in the loop on that, make sure that you go to our Discord server. There's a link in the description. Join that. And that way you can go there and see a little link that says RPG fan, and you can see we'll post a video in there. Or obviously, you can go to the website or follow them on Twitter is another option as well.
Mhm.
But I think that's it. So we'll have to catch you all next week. So thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Take care.
See you next time.